Border Patrol agents apprehended more than 10,000 migrants along the U.S.-Mexico border yesterday. That is a record for a 24-hour period, according to a senior U.S. official speaking with CBS News. And it comes as Title 42 is set to expire tomorrow. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas spoke about it earlier today.
I cannot overemphasize that our current situation is the outcome of Congress leaving a broken, outdated immigration system in place for over 2 decades, despite unanimous agreement that we desperately need legislative reform.
We have this well covered. Nicole Sganga and Camilo Montoya-Galvez join us now. Nicole is CBS News' Homeland Security and Justice reporter. She's in Brownsville, Texas. And Camilo is a CBS News immigration reporter. He's in El Paso. I ask if you're watching to indulge us for a moment. The cell signals aren't great there. We may have a little bit of a quirk or a delay as we speak with both Nicole and Camilo. Nicole, as you're in Brownsville, as this deadline nears, what are you hearing? What are the concerns of folks who are there?
Yeah, well, that depends which folks you're talking about, Scott. And actually, as we're talking, you can see one of the buses which is being used to transport migrants. I'm here at Fort Monument, and this was a makeshift border processing center that has been stood up in 72 hours here in Brownsville, Texas, in order to try to, keep up with the demand. It's a contingency measure. The mayor was talking to me the other day, the mayor of Brownsville here, concerned because his city has about the ability to process 1,000 a day. But here in Brownsville, we're seeing closer to 2,000 a day. The Texas National Guard was here earlier, the tactical border force sort of showing off, some of their equipment and what they're equipped to do. And we asked the Brigadier General exactly that. He said he's most concerned with the safety and the well-being of his officers. I spoke with an NGO volunteer earlier today who's stationed at the bus station downtown Brownsville, welcoming migrants. They're concerned about food. They're concerned about safety. They're concerned that migrants here in the Rio Grande Valley have begun to sleep on the street surrounding that area. Talking to Border Patrol agents here, concern about capacity. That is part of the reason why we've seen the Biden administration begin to release migrants who are deemed not a national security or public safety threat into the United States without that notice to appear before an immigration judge. Instead, just with instructions to appear before an ICE office. Last thing, Scott, some late breaking news today that U.S. Secret Service officials will, in fact, be here on the border. Now, I do want to temper that. I'm told it is a very small number, somewhere around a dozen. But keep in mind, U.S. Secret Service, part of the Department of Homeland Security, and Secretary Mayorkas at his press conference today making it very clear this is a whole of government and a whole of department response.
And we've been told the U.S. is implementing this sweeping new asylum restriction for after Title 42 expires. What does that mean and what does that entail?
Hi, Scott. This regulation represents a seismic shift to U.S. asylum policy, as well as a major pivot in policy shift by President Biden, who campaigned on restoring access to the U.S. asylum system just 2 years ago during the 2020 campaign against former President Donald Trump. Under this regulation, migrants who cross into the U.S. illegally will be disqualified from U.S. asylum if they fail to request protection in a third country like Mexico or Guatemala before coming here to the U.S.-Mexico border. Migrants who are not able to prove that they qualify for an exemption to these rules, Scott, will face deportation to their home country or Mexico and will be banished from the U.S. for 5 years. And if they try to re-enter the U.S., they could face jail time as well as criminal prosecution. So in many ways, Scott, this is a tougher, more hardline measure than the Title 42 pandemic restrictions that it will replace on Friday in just a few hours and days. And the Biden administration is hoping that this policy will deter migration to the U.S.-Mexico border, where officials have been recording record levels of crossings in recent days. But the ACLU has already said that it will challenge this rule in federal court.
Simply a pivotal week for border policy and the reality at the border. Camilo, Nicole, we thank you both.